Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for the chance to speak here today. I am Dan Montgomery, President of the Illinois Federation of Teachers. We represent more than 103,000 men and women who work in every position from pre-K through 12 teachers and school support staff, first grade teachers working with special need kids in Belleville, to bus drivers and cafeteria workers in Gurnee, community college faculty from Blackhawk College to Southwest Illinois College, our university professionals and faculty from Chicago to Macomb, and public employees, from seed inspectors and meat inspectors to the Secretary of State Police. They're all real people doing the real work of the state. They're performing real and valuable services for the citizens of Illinois, including its children. And we oppose House Amendment 3 to Senate Bill 1673. As those members are working right now, while we're in this committee, to keep our highways safe and teach our children, they are under the impression that they are safe with the understanding that the job they accepted in Illinois in the public sector at compensation levels less than they would see in the private sector, and one of the benefits they would have would be the pension that's been promised to them. And this depended on their faithful and constant contribution from every paycheck for their share of the pension. For many of them, 9.4% of salary. They've made every payment, and the state legislature has sadly not been so faithful. And there's no dispute from you, I think, from most people now in the public sphere that we hear, that in fact, a certain set of facts apply here. And that's that our pension benefits are reasonable. That's been studied by a bipartisan commission from the General Assembly, that employees have made every payment, that 80% or actually a little more do not get Social Security. This is in fact their life savings, and that the single biggest cause of the underfunding owes to the state not making its required payment over many years. In fact, none other than the Civic Committee's Ty Fainer has said that were this in the private sector, the state leaders who shorted our pensions, the required payments, would be prosecuted. And now we come to see this bill that seeks to take from them, from workers, their already hard-earned and already paid-for benefits in the guise of reform. I don't think this bill is pension reform. I think it's theft of earned benefits used to pay the state's bills. In fact, one of the things that we have been interested in has been in a funding trigger, right? How do we ensure the state makes its payments so this doesn't happen again? Well, that trigger depends on 50% election mechanism, so that the only responsible funding would come if half of the employees choose to harm themselves. And I think the interchange between Representative Poe and Representative Nekritz was very telling. You're told that there's no contribution increase for employees in this bill, and yet in that dialogue, Representative Nekritz admitted that the cost would be worked out through collective bargaining, which means, in fact, the workers will assume these costs. And the part they don't assume, the school districts will have to either cut services for or raise taxes. I do wonder, as Henry stated, what would happen if the state declared that it would pay only pennies on the dollar to those who owed those creditors of the state, including bondholders, for that is what the state will be saying to its public employees under this bill. We strenuously object to the taking of benefits, the taking away of benefits from current retirees. They have earned and paid for the current level of benefits. To deprive them under this unconstitutional construction is not only forbidden by the law of the land, it is unjust and immoral. The COLA provision shouldn't even be called COLA. It doesn't actually service to the level of the cost of living. It fails the constitutional test, in that it presents a Hobson's choice. There's no free choice here, but a coercive dilemma where a public servant must choose between harm on the one hand or more harm on the other. The cost shift provisions we find present an unbearable burden on local school districts, community colleges, and universities. It does amount to a property tax increase for the one group and a tuition or fee increase for the other, while our property taxes are already too high in many places, and tuition increases threaten to make college unaffordable for yet more of our citizens. This is not a recipe for economic growth or a healthier Illinois. And finally, we do appreciate that we were consulted on some of the provisions of this bill and that we were allowed to be at the meetings with leaders to give our ideas. We do. But for a problem that took the state 30 years to create, to be given a bill hours, a final bill, hours before having to testify without a full actuarial accounting. It was interesting to hear Mr. Sturmer talk about the actuarial numbers they received. We haven't seen those. That does not strike me as responsible legislating. The people of Illinois deserve better. We stand ready to continue to work toward real pension reform that would ensure retirement security, respect our Constitution, our taxpayers, and be fair. But if this bill passes in this form, it will certainly be a dark day in Illinois. The state will have cheated hundreds of thousands of its finest public servants under the politically convenient ruse that it is solving a problem. Nothing could be further from the truth. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, we'll now move to the President.